Ooh, it's getting more difficult to talk about Spurs every week, isn't it? I'm Kieran from Speaking Spurs. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment. We're talking about the Liverpool game, 4-3 defeat. So close to rescuing a draw after a dismal start to that game. What can we do? We just concede so many goals in opening stages of the game. So look, that defeat unfortunately has, as far as I'm concerned, has killed our top four hopes. That allowed Liverpool to leapfrog us in the table. So they currently sit fifth, 33 games played with 56 points. We have played one more game than them, 34, with 54 points. So we're now 2 points adrift from them, and they have a game in hand. It's a difficult time. So let's talk about the actual game itself. So, the way we set up, fairly straightforward. Couple of changes to the starting lineup. We saw Ben Davies come in for Clement Longley. We saw Richarlison drop to the bench, and the out of form Kulusevski took his place. I mean, the game itself, we started terribly once again. It just seems to be a pattern at the moment. I don't know what is going through the players' minds. And this is one of these situations where you can't blame Ryan Mason. He's setting them up in a shape. The shape is not the problem. These are lots of individual errors, players sitting off people, not making challenges, not being aggressive enough. Then the individual error that we had, unfortunately, for Lucas Moura, which cost us the game. You can't blame Ryan Mason for that. The change of shape throughout the game I thought was excellent. It was good in-game management from him, but then the issue with that is, obviously, the change of shape was great, but then he had to bring on more attacking players to create a threat. We get the goal, but ultimately, when you change those players and there's loads of attacking players on the pitch, you don't have the defenders on the pitch to defend out the goal. And it was actually good timing from him. He made the changes, I felt, at the right time in the game. You would not have expected us to concede a goal straight after scoring one, which is ridiculous. So, let's talk about the players themselves, okay? Because ultimately they're the ones going out there, they're the ones causing all the problems. So, Sonny and Skip shined in this game. Richarlison thought worked really hard when he came on, and that Lucas Moura error. So, we'll start with the goalkeeper, Fraser Forster. Very little he could actually do with any of Liverpool's first half goals. And second half, he didn't actually have anything to do whatsoever, really. They didn't really test him because we were applying the majority of the pressure. So, player ratings wise, he comes away with a 6. He did okay. Christian Romero, not a great day for him. He saw David Luiz nipping ahead of him at the front post to double Liverpool's lead. He then hacked down Cody Gakpo in the area that gave the referee no option but to award a penalty. He pushed upfield early in the second half and volleyed against the post. It was actually very well improvised. He was sort of... It was almost like he jumped late but was suspended in the air waiting for the ball. Unlucky to hit the post there. And he later set up Sonny with a fantastic pass that completely cut Liverpool open. So only a 5 for him. One of his men in the trio, Eric Dyer in the middle. Not a great day at the office for him. Comes away with a measly 3. Gakpo ran off him far too easily for the second goal. He was then lucky to get away with some really, really sloppy passing that we could have been punished for. We just need so much better from him. He's a guy that has good leadership skills, but unfortunately, everything else is kind of left begging at the moment. And, I can't defend him much longer. Ben Davies, back in the starting 11 in place of Longley. He actually put in a decent performance at the back. I think he was the best of all of them. Not many attacks that come down his sector were overly successful. He rushed out when he needed to. He kept good distances. He was fairly tidy. So I suppose he can get like a 5.5, 6. Wing backs. Pedro Porro. He was next to Romero marking Diaz when Curtis Jones was in acres of space behind him to net the opener. He struggled defensively despite playing in his natural position of wing back. He saw a powerful drive tipped over the bar by Alisson early in the second half. And once we kind of took control of the game, I felt in an attacking sense, he did all right. He was putting crosses over. He was getting into good space. He was attacking well. but it's that defensive side of the game that's let him down once again. So the most I can give him really is a 4. He was at fault for some of the goals. On the other side, however, even Perisic had a much better game than he has done of late. Not much to do in an attacking sense to begin with because we were being overrun, but did put in a fine cross after turning Van Dijk inside out that came volleyed home. But yeah, another decent performance from him. I felt defensively, I felt he did okay, so he can have a 6. Then we get into the middle of the park. Højbjerg, he gets a 7 from me. Liverpool were running through our midfield at ease to begin with, until we started to come into the game just before the break. Got so much better as the game wore on. He wanted a penalty after going down under the Trent Alexander-Arnold challenge. And I felt as the game went on, he got into it more and more. And then the midfield was obviously helped when Sarr came on. It gave us a third person in the middle there, add a bit of extra presence. So yeah, 7 for him. Then his midfield partner, Oliver Skipp. He was lucky not to get a red card. Let's put that out there. It was a bad challenge on Diaz, not long before half-time. The argument is he did actually get the ball first, momentum then took him through, but the problem is the shape of his foot going into that challenge is not something that is nice to see. If he hadn't have got the ball, you probably would have been seeing a red card, but he's made clear contact with the ball and then followed through afterwards. He split the Liverpool back line with a fine pass to Perisic that resulted in Harry Kane's goal. And if Kevin De Bruyne had sent that pass through, everyone would be going, "Oh, what an amazing ball! It was Kevin De Bruyne is so special." Oliver Skipp has made a few decent passes this season that have kind of gone under the radar to anyone but Spurs fans. He battled well in midfield. He put in a brilliant shift. Lots of great recovery runs, tracking back, following players, running with them, nicking the ball. And then obviously took away the scar from the game to prove it. Put his head in bravely up against Diogo Jota with his disgusting high foot. So yeah, an 8 from him. Dejan Kulusevski, returning to the starting 11 after a positive cameo appearance in midweek, but didn't track Jones's run for the first goal after initially winning the ball off of him. He was put through on goal shortly after Kane's strike, but shot straight at Alisson instead of square into the striker, who was in a much better position than him, surrounded by no players at all, completely open. He teed up Sonny's effort that hit the post in the second half before later making away. So only comes away with a 4 because some bad decision making and defensively wasn't sound. Harry Kane gave us a glimmer of hope just before half time, after following in that lovely Perisic cross. Would have had a second if, as I said, Kulusevski had teed him up just before half time. Another good performance from him as he tried to help Spurs mount a comeback. There was a weird situation at one point in the game. He would have been offside. The decision where he didn't decide to shoot and squared it to Sonny and just overhit it. But yeah, so 7 from him. And then Sonny back on the left flank with Kulusevski then coming into the side because he was on the right in the last game. Saw an effort expertly cleared off the line by Virgil van Dijk in the closing stages of the first half. Was very close to adding to his tally shortly after the break as he shot against the post before getting his name on the score sheet in the closing stages with a low finish. He gets an 8. And you have to say as well, the offside one, he hit the post as well. So, much better from him. But he has this habit of playing really well when others aren't, which is very frustrating. Now on to the substitutes. Pap Matar, he came on for Kulusevski in the 66th minute. So what this meant was we went to an extra midfielder, another body there to not really to protect, but it actually opened the play more. It meant there was more freedom for the other midfielders, so it just completely changed the shape. It was a 3-5-2. Introduced into that midfield three. Didn't do loads and loads, but it just helped with the shape and the balance for the squad. A 5 for him. Richarlison, now he didn't come on until the 84th minute. He came on for Skippy at the injury, and I was actually really impressed with him. He wanted a penalty, but his claims were waved away. Maybe he went down a bit too easily, but he was impeded. Finally got his first Premier League goal, and do you know what? When you see it in real time. It was one of them where you were like, is that going to be given offside? You had to watch the replay because Richarlison has scored. In your mind, you're a bit like, the second he takes his top off, you're like, he's going to get yellow carded and the goal is going to get disallowed. But look, for the first time this season in the Premier League, he scored a goal, his top did come off, he celebrated mentally and the goal stood. I thought that he was quite good in link-up play. He added some strength up top, bit of a nuisance. It was a very good header. What you expect from that distance, heading it into the ground, making it difficult for the keeper. It then obviously bounced over him. 7 for him in a very short spell. Then Danjuma came on as well for the closing minutes as they looked to equalise. Not really on long enough to give him a score. And then, poor Lucas Moura came on as well for Pedro Porro. And I could see what Mason was trying to do here. He was trying it because the momentum was with us and we were holding ourselves really well. The game was open. And at this stage of the season, do you know what? A point is only really good for us to secure something like Europa League football. But the win really keeps us in for the hunt and puts the pressure on everybody else. So he went for it, which I really appreciate in a manager. But his back pass, it was poor. It was so delicate, just laid straight on a plate for Jota to net that winner. So, things are just not going well for Lucas Moura at the moment. Obviously, the last time he was on the pitch, gets himself red carded. This time round, sets Liverpool up for a last-minute winner. So, what can I say? You got to feel sorry for him in a way. He should never have been back in defence at that stage of the game. But I get what Ryan Mason was trying to do as well. You have to change things up. You have to put on the attacking players if you're going to go on and win these games. So it's one of them. The game was on a knife edge, and it just so happened to be Diogo Jota being the man to score the goal. So let's talk about what some people have been saying. Gary Neville. The guy talks a lot of nonsense a lot of the time, and he really annoys me. But he was saying you've got to go a long way to see two defenders have as bad a week as Eric Dyer and Romero. They are all over the place. Absolute shambles they are at the back. The lack of composure from Romero is staggering, and the choice of charging out by Dyer. With his experience, he's done it 2 or 3 times in this game already, and he shakes his head. So this was him commentating. This was a first half comment from him. He said, Dyer and Romero, they need the season to end. They are a lot better than they're showing. That's being kind to them. And do you know what? I agree with him. It was absolutely shocking from them. The defensive decisions that they're making, the lack of leadership. What annoys me about Romero is obviously picks up a lot of yellow cards, has been red carded a couple of times and let us down. But overall, defensively, he's usually very solid, very reliable. He gets in opponents' faces, lets them know that they're there, and he does that early on. My issue is, since Argentina have won the World Cup, it's almost like he's just down tools. He's still in holiday mode in his head. He's been an absolute disgrace defensively since then. It's almost like a different player. Eric Dyer, obviously with his experience, I expect much better, especially when Ben Davies is next to him on the left, somebody very experienced. So you'd feel like between them, and I don't like it when people say Eric Dyer's a bad defender. In a back 2, he's a bad defender. In a back 3, he has all the capabilities, the leadership skills, his aerial ability. For me, he just sits off players too much. He allows them too much space in front of him. He's terrified of players that are quicker than him, it seems to be. In midfield, you can get away with that a bit more because you've got another bank of players behind you. When you're in defence, you can't. So let's talk a bit about what Harry Kane has been saying. He admitted the manner of the defeat so deep into stoppage time was hard to take. I mean, you could see that on all their faces. They've done all that hard work, got back into the game just to be let down by an individual error. So opening up on the message from Ryan Mason at half-time, Kane outlined the importance of keeping the best teams quiet in the opening stages and managing the game better to ensure they remain in the contest. He said, sometimes when you're 3-0 down, it's easy to start playing. It's easy to have no cares. I think the best teams around are able to start like that and go out there and play in those moments. I think we need to understand that those moments. I think we need to understand those moments more well as a team. You're coming away to Anfield just like you're going away to St James's Park. Two really intense atmospheres, and what happened today is exactly what they were hoping for as they were on the front foot. We need to be more experienced in those moments, slowing the game down, dictating the tempo, because once it's 3-0, we've got no option but to play with a high intensity. We showed patience, and the boss showed great patience in terms of talking to us, and even at half-time told us not to get too carried away and try to win the game in the first 10 minutes in the second half. We knew we were going to get the chances, and if we kept plucking at it, and if we kept the clean sheet, which we spoke about at half-time, we would get something out of the game. We were so close to being right. Credit to him. There's a lot of good things we can take from the game, but ultimately, when you lose like this, it's hard to take. It's just gutting that what happened at the end. The first 20 minutes is just unacceptable again. It feels like I'm talking about it every time we play, especially away from home. And then the 60 to 70 minutes, we had the better chances, created some really good chances, and hit the post a few times. Alisson made some good saves, and we fully deserved to get back into the game like we did. To go through all that effort, determination, desire, and come back is in one of the hardest away grounds in the Premier League. To then give it away so cheaply at the end is just hard to even put into words. And I think Kane has summed it up quite nicely. I do think although Liverpool had so many chances in the first half, I mean, they weren't great, they weren't clear-cut chances. Once we actually started to play, we dominated. Like as I said, we hit the post 3 times, to the point where Christian Romero, a centre-back, is breaking into the box to get involved. And we had that in the game against Manchester United as well, where Eric Dyer made his way into the box and just sent a header wide. It's just one of those things. But I will say, those people that are like, Ryan Mason needs to go now as well, are you not realising Conte, although we weren't playing as well as we should have done and we were still leaking goals, he gave us a bit of defensive rigidity with the experience and him standing there shouting. But still, he couldn't get it right. Stellini had the exact same problem. He played the same formation as Conte, but he tried to change things in the game and couldn't get much out of them. Like, we were still starting badly under him. Now, Ryan Mason, we've continued to start badly, but the difference being, Ryan Mason seems more flexible to change things in the game and take risks. And actually, up until the individual error by Lucas Moura, everything that he did was right, Ryan Mason. He changed the formation completely, saw an opportunity to build more into the game, because we were creating chances. We just needed to dominate the centre of midfield a little bit more. He changed it up. It gave us the extra body in there. We've got enough attacking talent to deal with those things. And we pressed and we pressed and we pressed and we got the goals. Richarlison came on, worked hard and got his goal. And it was an individual error that cost us the game. So actually, when you look at it, Ryan Mason tactically got it spot on. He made the changes when he needed to. It's just a shame what happened in the end. He can't make the defenders better in just 2 weeks. Changing the way defenders defend in a game, that takes time, that takes experience. Ryan Mason hasn't got time. Stellini couldn't do it, and he's been working with the players all season in the same capacity as Ryan Mason has. Conte couldn't get it done. He couldn't stop us conceding goals, and that's the guy that's been in charge of us for the 18 months he was here. So, is Ryan Mason the right man to take over full time? Probably not. He probably needs to be a little bit more experienced. However, of some of the managers we're looking at, would I put Ryan Mason ahead of him? Yes, I would. I definitely would. The players seem to be playing for him. And look, if you give him the whole summer to work with the team, I have no doubt that defensively we would be in a better place come the start of the season. Now, my only concern is with someone like Ryan Mason as manager, especially with Tottenham not having Champions League football. That does weaken the type of player I think that we can bring in. That would be my only concern. I think a bigger name manager attracts a better quality of player, because they think, do you know what, that manager can probably get Tottenham back into the top 4. They will look at Ryan Mason and go, well, where's he managed? What has he done? You know, he had 6 games with Tottenham the first time round in the Premier League. He's got 6 times with him this time round, and that's like a couple of years apart. So experience-wise, in terms of full first-team management, he's an unknown. And, you know, players won't come into that. But I will say that I think the players do play for him. It's just the start of the games, and that has been a problem no matter what manager we've had. Even under Mourinho, we weren't always the best at starting games. So it is what it is. It's a tricky situation. Unfortunately, we couldn't hold on to it. But ultimately, you know, all the point does is keep us in contention for Europa League football. Now, a lot of Spurs fans have been saying they don't want Europa League. Well, they would take Europa League football, but they certainly don't want the Europa Conference League, which I agree with. I don't want that. But is it time that maybe we drop out of Europe completely for a season? Now, I know some of you are going to be screaming, going, why would you want us to not have European football? The season that Conte came in at Chelsea, right? They had no European football. They won the league. It gives you a chance to reset. It gives your players time to rest in between games. You get a solid week to work on every single game until the Christmas schedule gets busy. You have the chance for a cup run, which we need to win a trophy of some sort, just for a bit of feel-good factor around the club. But not being in European football, I think, is a massive plus. It'll hurt us in the sense that some players want to stay around, but based on the way they've played this season, there won't be many teams coming in for our players to pinch anyway. We've got a lot of players coming back in the summer. There's even been talk of Tanguy Ndombele having his contract terminated. That is your record signing, and I know wages-wise it makes sense. But this is a guy that's just about to win the league in Serie A. How are we not managing to get like some sort of fee for him? Somebody must want to buy him. Isn't it much easier just to take a really low fee than cut everything off? I don't know. It's going to be a mental one in the summer because we're obviously looking director of football, manager, women's manager. It's crazy. It's an absolute circus. It's almost hilarious. You couldn't make it up. But yeah, that's my summarisation of the game. A bit of player ratings in there for you and a little bit of talk on my thoughts on Ryan Mason. So Crystal Palace up next. Not going to be an easy team to play either. So yeah, on to that one. Thanks for sticking around. It's so fun talking about Spurs right now. I have been Kieran from Speaking Spurs. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment. And until next time, come on you Spurs!